Hey everyone, welcome to yet another of my pool plan videos. In these videos, I'll be covering the banners and events where Lightning, Beatrix, Braska and I guess Ace will be the featured synergy characters. You can refer to the cropped infographic on the left hand side, which was derived from the DFFOO's global forecast to see which events these were. And as always, I will also include a link to the full global forecast, so you can head over to the video description if you're interested in that. This time around, I think I'm quite glad that I only do my pool plan video every 2 events or so, because from the last live stream, the devs decided to shake things up a little bit and fast forward or bring forward the Beatrix and Lightning banner, which in my opinion is actually a very pleasant surprise. Anyway, I will of course cover more info and my plans on that when we come to that particular slide. A quick look on how I did on the previous few events. The most recent one we had was of course Yuffie and Yuri's event, and that one was an easy skip for me. I don't really have any interest in either Yuffie or Yuri. The event before that featured Ursula and Shantoto, and while I didn't have a lot of interest in Shantoto, I was somewhat intrigued by Ursula. However, I did already have Ursula's FR fully maxed out, so I sort of was hoping to get a BT on the free pools but did not get it. And I decided to just bite the bullet and try to see whether I got lucky with tickets. And luckily enough, I did score her BT weapon in 120 tickets, which was a big win in my opinion. Normally I don't recommend chasing BT with tickets, so I don't think this is really recommended. You could spend, like 500, 1000 tickets even and still not get the BT. If you do want to spend tickets chasing BT weapons, I would recommend to sort of put a hard cap on yourself so that you don't go overboard with the tickets. Alright, so coming to the first event, which is the time travel lightnings intersecting wheels. This event features the return of Lightning and Beatrix. Lightning will get a newly released FR weapon, and Beatrix will get a newly released BT weapon. Both characters will also get a degree of rework across their skills. So I'll start off with Lightning. Lightning's rework is centered around how her EX functions in her kit. First off, her EX recast now charges faster, which is a good thing, and has been considerably reworked in terms of damage, where it is now a whopping 12 HP dumps in total, alongside with the usual utility that it has for the turn delay. Her LD buff now also gives her the true damage additional bonus HP damage effect if she is attacking a broken target. Her BT, while is not new, did receive a massive rework, which makes the BT now integral to part of her kit. If you don't have Lightning's BT, I would recommend not using her at all. It is that big a difference. First off, Lightning's BT aura gives the party an HP damage cap up plus 30%. Lightning herself gets another 50% out of this for a total of 80% HP damage cap up, which is absolutely massive. However, that's not the only juicy thing. Her BT aura also enables her to fully and instantly refill her EX meter each time she breaks a target. Now keep in mind, Lightning's EX actually re-breaks the target. So this means that if you go, for example, BT plus to get her BT aura, and then go into burst mode, you can spam EX every single turn in Lightning's BT mode. This also fixes one of Lightning's biggest weaknesses. When the Shinryu era came about, Lightning fell off extremely hard because her style of play didn't really fit into the force time mechanics. Traditionally, Lightning's style of play is a turn hogger, where her S1 or S2 doesn't really do a lot of damage on their own. However, a lot of her kit revolves around getting free and instant turns, especially from the use of her LD. And the idea behind this is that you could just spam her S1 and S2 during her free and instant turns, and this will rack up a lot of damage per actual turn. However, of course, although she can do a lot of extra damage with all the free turns, this doesn't play well in force time because the 10 force time turns will tick down per action taken. So for example, even if Lightning gets 2 free turns from my LD, as she uses S1 and S2 for free. While the turn counter doesn't go up, the force time turn will continue to tick, which means that she was a terrible unit to use in force time. With this change, however, you'll likely not want to use her S1 or S2 at all when she has a BT aura up, and instead be using her EX every single turn that she gets. So this sort of makes her not only viable to use in force time in the current era, but makes her a very good single target damage dealer as well. Lightning gets a new FR weapon, and her FR first of all grants her the 2 free turns plus skill use similar to her LD. Her FR effects are: if you use a thunder attack on your turn, you get plus 45%. If you attack a broken target, you get plus 30%, so that's pretty good and pretty generic overall. Not only that, Lightning's FR also gives party Thunder Enchant, which means that the other 2 allies in your party should have no problems meeting both the conditionals, so long as the enemies are not immune to break and the party members can be Thunder Enchanted. On top of this, during Lightning's force time, you get a further HP damage and HP damage cap up plus 30% if the target is broken, which also means that if Lightning has both her BT and force time up and she attacks a broken target, she gets a mind-staggering 110% HP damage cap up. Combine that with her crazy EX and you can see the very high potential for her as a competent damage dealer. That being said, my main interest in this event is actually more for Beatrix. I would obviously build Lightning if I get her FR, I already have her BT weapon, but I'm more intrigued by Beatrix because I really like the often style of play as well, and with Beatrix's rework, she becomes one of the premier often / counter units in the game. First of all, Beatrix's S1, S2 Holy Knight Protection, LD and FR all gets a damage rework. Beatrix's FR, while not new, will also get a rework on the conditionals to make it more in line with the current meta, and you can refer to the bottom right hand of the slide to see what her conditionals will look like. Very quickly, if you use a thunder attack, you get plus 5%. That seems small, but that includes often thunder attacks. If Beatrix herself does the thunder attack, she gets another plus 15%, so for a total of 20%, which is pretty nice because this triggers on her counter attacks or counter rose petals. Lastly, if you take a turn and your party has at least 12 buffs total, you get plus 40%. The biggest highlight for me for Beatrix's rework is her counter rose petals now does 4 HP dumps with a tiny bit of splash at the last HP dump, and this is pretty good damage. 4 HP dumps for an often attack is pretty rare. I think we have General Leo and Noctis who can do 4 HP dumps often, but those are not counter based. So if you have, for example, 3 enemies or even 2 enemies, that act very quickly, the counters will rack up in damage extremely quick. Now on this event, Beatrix gets a new BT weapon. Her BT aura lasts for 8 turns and gives her finally the ability to party Thunder Enchant, which is very welcome because this also fits in very nicely with her force time conditionals. We get the usual party aura, so Brave gain plus 20%, Brave damage cap plus 50%, HP damage plus 20%, and HP damage cap up, sorry for the small typo there, HP damage cap up plus 30%. While her BT aura is up, anytime any ally X, Beatrix's buff's duration will not tick down, and this is pretty good because Beatrix typically buffs the party with Noble Loyalty, and the Noble Loyalty buff is key because this is the buff that triggers her counter attacks if you are attacked, and the only way to reapply the buff is to use her Thunder Slash. This means that you don't need to reapply her buff as often for the party members, and she does also have a few other buffs, namely from her S1 Saint Cloth, that will also not tick down as long as her BT aura is up. And this is also pretty handy considering that one of her force conditionals require you to have a number of buffs on the party. Overall, Beatrix has now a very solid kit, which does also very nice damage as a counter tank unit. While she doesn't mitigate damage as well as the other cover tanks, so for example Oren or Gladio, she more than makes up for this from the fact that she can do more damage on her counter attacks, and she of course also has the buff dispel utility still. My plan here is I am hoping to get lucky with Beatrix's PT weapon. That is the main weapon that I am gunning for, and I of course hope to score Lightning's FR weapon along the way, but I will stop the moment I get Beatrix's PT. I plan to maybe spend like 200-300 tickets or so, maybe 400, but if I don't get her BT there, then I may just swap to gems overall. Next up, we have the Spiritus World of Illusion Ifrit, and this event features the return of Braska, and Braska will receive a new BT weapon on this event. Ace finally makes a return as well. I can't remember when was the last time Ace was actually featured. I think it was a really long time ago. Ace does get a rework, and Ace will get a new force weapon. Starting off with Braska, Braska's S2 gets a damage rework alongside his EX, LD and FR, and Braska also gets a FR conditional update, and you can refer to the bottom right to see how his force conditionals will look like. Essentially, you can get a total of plus 70% per turn during Braska's force time, which is pretty decent. Braska's new burst weapon lasts for 8 turns in terms of the PT aura, and he finally has the ability to party fire enchant, which is pretty good considering that this is one of his force conditionals. Alongside that, his BT gives additional auras in terms of Brave gain plus 50%, Brave and HP damage plus 20%, and HP damage cap up plus 30%. While Braska has his BT aura up, he will trigger an additional follow-up attack every time he takes an action called Jacked Beam, and that does 3 AoE HP dumps and batteries the party at the same time. Because of this, I would say not to look down on Braska's damage potential. His EX actually does pretty decent damage. I think, if I'm not mistaken, after rework it does 8 HP dumps. Don't quote me on that, I think it's somewhere around there. But alongside that, with Jacked Beam, that means he can do more than 10 HP dumps a turn from his EX. Admittedly, you can't obviously use his EX every single turn unless you play around it, but this is pretty nice damage given that he isn't primarily a DPS character. He's more of a force gauge charger / support character. Moving on to Ace. Ace gets a massive rework because his kit is pretty outdated. His S1, S2 EX damage now does pretty nice damage. His LD doesn't get a damage rework, but he gets one additional skill use on his LD, and his LD buff now has much stronger potencies. Ace's PT aura now features an HP damage cap up component as well, which is plus 10, 20 or 30% depending on the number of his BT stacks, and his BT expiration attack, which is I think the we are here or we have arrived, one of the two, can't remember which one it is, but his BT expiration attack now is stronger with 10 full AoE HP dumps. On this event, Ace gets a new force weapon, and his force attack, like his LD, will either inflict or flip his whole cut debuff, which is pretty good. So now with this event, considering his LD gets additional skill use and he has 2 more echo users or force echo users that can flip his whole cut, means that his traps can now last significantly longer throughout the duration of the fight. His force effects are, if you do a magic attack, including often, you get plus 5% per attack. This gels in very nicely with his whole card trap attack. I think the only unfortunate thing is that it requires the attack to be magic, and there's not really a lot of often magic attacks in the game. I think one example that comes to my mind is Cloud of Darkness, but there really isn't. Most of the other cover tanks are also physical based. I guess you could maybe make a case to use Celeste and her traps as another source of plus 5%, but there isn't just that many characters that will make use of these force conditionals beyond Ace himself. The second conditional is having your turn pass while you have either a stacking buff or an overhead, which gives you plus 40%. One thing that didn't get a rework on this event is Ace's traps. It's still only 1 HP dump. However, keep in mind that since his BT aura now has a HP damage cap up component, this means that by default, his traps will hit harder. So he isn't that bad overall, and he is a pretty, I guess, decent and competent magic damage dealer. Overall though, I don't have any interest in both Braska and Ace, so my plan here is to skip this event. In this section of the video, I'll be covering my opinion on how good the units are and which units to go for if you are limited in resources such as gems, tickets or PT ingots. As always, a quick disclaimer that you should always focus on roles that fill gaps in your roster, so a unit's sort of ranking or viability can go up or down depending on who else you have in your roster, particularly if, for example, you lack certain units or certain roles in your roster, or if you already have roles like damage dealer or tank or support filled up, then obviously you might not need to pull for some of these units. I usually also would recommend maybe 1 or 2 units as so-called good value, and normally the good value characters are those that I would recommend to try and pick up just because of the fact that they would provide you a good return regardless of who else you already have in your roster. This time around, I don't think that any of the 4 units fit the good value category, and I don't want this to sound the wrong way. It doesn't mean that any of them are bad. All of them are actually pretty decent at the very least, if not good. The thing though is that they fit roles and users that are not too unique to them, so depending on who you already have in your roster, you won't lose or miss out a lot if you decide to skip them. I put all 4 of the units here on this slide, and just a disclaimer here that these aren't positioned in any way to show sort of whether they are better than one of the other. The thing is that their roles are very different. So for example, Braska's role is mainly as a support and force cage charger, Ace is a magic damage dealer, Beatrix is an often attacker with buff dispel utility, and Lightning is more a physical single target damage dealer. I would say that do consider each and any of them, and depending more on whether you need to update one of these roles in your roster. Personally, for me, I'm going more for Beatrix out of the 4. I am quite comfortable with my damage dealers to date, and while Lightning seems enticing, well, I still hope I get her FR while I chase for Beatrix, but if I don't get Lightning, I'm not going to spend additional resources chasing after her gear. For Ace, he is good, but I'm mindful that Estos is coming, and I can tell you for now, Estos is going to be the top meta pick for the month of July, and once he drops, he's going to be in a whole new tier of DPS all on his own. But enough for Estos for here. I'll cover more on him when we get to his banner. Finally, for Braska, he's pretty okay, but I have quite a lot of other force gauge chargers / supports already, and really I don't really see a lot of need for me to continue pulling for his kit. If you are new though, support characters are generally pretty good in the game, and they last for slightly longer duration just due to the virtue of their role as supports. So if you don't have many support characters, then Braska is actually a pretty okay pick. That's it for this video. In summary, out of the 4 characters, I'll be mainly chasing after Beatrix's BT weapon. Really hope I get lucky. If I did get her BT weapon on a free pool, I will be skipping everything else and saving my resources. But if not, I will probably use either gems or tickets, hoping to still get some great luck with tickets for her BT weapon. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the content, do leave a like, comment and subscribe because it really helps a lot. Till then, I'll see you guys in the next pool plan video. Bye!